Hello everyone, welcome to video 2 of the Arabic alphabet. Let's get started. At this point we're going to move on to the letters Jim, Ha, and Kha. Remember that to this point we have only discussed one non-connector, which was Alif. The next three letters I will be discussing are the letters, again, Jim, Ha, and Kha. Like Ba, Ta, and Tha, these letters are all connectors. The first letter I will discuss is the letter Jim. Note that the four forms of Jim appear different in print than they do when handwritten. Honestly, there are a number of forms that you will be encountering with the letters Jim, Ha, and Kha, but this is the best one to get down to begin with. Try to also recognize it as you see it in print. To write Jim in its isolated form, start above the line, draw a small hook shape, then draw a line straight across. Next, reverse direction and swing beneath the line into the tail. Finally, insert the dot in the appropriate location. Jim in the initial position begins with the same hook as the isolated position. Rather than drawing straight across to the right, start the line downward toward the line, then draw the connecting segment that follows the line. To write the Jim in a medial position, you must plan ahead. The connecting segment of a medial Jim lies well above the line, which means that the previous letter must end above the line. To write the final position of the Jim, connect the preceding letter directly into the Jim by way of a straight line. This will require that the preceding letters be drawn above the line. Let's now move on to the letter Ha. The letter Ha represents a sound made deep in the throat, which has no English equivalent. I like to imitate the process of fogging a pane of glass to explain the sound of Ha, as well as the necessary throat motions to achieve a proper Ha. At this point, practice at home the Ha. Of course, the Ha is written much like the Jim. The only difference is that the Ha lacks any dots. Finally, we have the letter Kha, which is another sound not found in English, although the general sound is prevalent in a number of European languages. To pronounce Kha, pay attention to where your tongue hits the roof of your mouth and blocks your windpipe. Again, the Kha is written like the Jim and the Ha, only with the dot on top of the letter's four positions. Moving on, we now have four new letters. Knowing that you will be encountering non-connectors and connectors, I believe it's going to become pretty easy right now because the next four letters are themselves all non-connectors, meaning that they do not connect if any letter is written to the left, and that you would insert a break. After these four, we will have discussed 5 of our total 6 non-connectors. The first letter to be discussed is Dal. This consonant letter is pronounced very crisply, and similar to a frontal D in English. Here the word doctor is a good example to understand the frontal D sound. Of course, the frontal D contrasts the emphatic D, which is an entirely different letter that we will discuss in a moment. As I have said, Dal is a non-connector, meaning that it does not connect to any letter that follows it. To write both the isolated or even initial form of Dal, begin above the line and slant downward toward the line. Before reaching the line, angle immediately and draw along the line, finishing with a tiny hook. Keep in mind that the body angle of the letter must remain below 90 degrees and the entire letter itself must remain above the line. The next letter is the letter Dal. This letter is also non-emphatic, and the TH sound in Dal is pronounced more like the word other. The letter Dal is written like Dal, with the addition of a single dot above the letter. The next letter to be discussed is the letter Ra. This letter is pronounced much like the Spanish R. Although this sound is not a common English sound, practice the Ra by making a whirling sound as your tongue flaps against the roof of your mouth. For example, R. Ra, like Dal and Dal, is a non-connector, but Ra is written almost entirely below the line. Again, the appearance of Ra will vary between handwriting and print styles, but it will usually appear distinct from the Dal in that its wide angle and long tail dip below the line. Next, we have the letter Z. This letter represents something similar to the English Z, such as in the word zebra. This letter appears the same as the Ra, only Z has a dot placed above the letter. To this point, we have now discussed 5 of the 6 non-connectors. Our final non-connector will come toward the end of the alphabet. Okay, moving on, we now have 4 new letters, and these letters are Sin, Sheen, Sod, and Dod. The first letter is the letter sin. Sin is the name of the Arabic letter corresponding to the English S as in the word seen itself. The Arabic sin always retains the soft s sound, as sin is a frontal consonant, which means the surrounding vowels take the frontal quality, especially alif and fatha. Sin is a connecting letter that is distinguished in print by its 3 teeth. In handwriting, however, sin is often written without its teeth, as a long straight line, which you will see in my handwritten example. In either case, it takes a tail when written independently or in final position. The initial sin is written just like the independent sin without the tail. When sin is connected from a previous letter, the connecting segment and the body of the letters are indistinguishable, and there is no hook on the beginning, so that the connecting segment and the letters together form a single flat line, like this. The final sin is written with its tail, which must come all the way back up to the line, or it may be mistaken for the letter ra. Now we're going to move on to the letter shin. The letter shin is also a connector, and its shape match those of the sin, except this letter takes 3 dots above. In handwriting, shin is written without the teeth, much like the sin, and the 3 dots are connected in a caret, just like those of the tha. In all 4 positions, the shin is written much like the sin, again with the 3 dots. Moving on, we now have the letter sad. This letter represents the emphatic counterpart or the emphatic version of sin. This and other emphatic consonants deepen the sound of the surrounding vowels, most notably alif and fatha. Pay attention to the sounds of all vowels near these emphatic letters because the quality of the vowels gives the clearest indication of the emphatic consonants. The letter sad is a connector, and it retains the same basic shape in both print and handwriting. There are 2 essential points to keep in mind when writing sad. The loop must be big and oval-shaped, and there must be a small tooth after the loop. To write the isolated sad, start on the line and make a big loop up and back to your right, then swing down and close it. Without stopping, make the tooth and then drop well below the line to make the tail. The tail of sad is the same shape as that of sin and must come all the way back up to the line. The initial form of sad is written in the same way without the tail. After making the tooth, continue on the connecting segment. An example of the word with sad in the initial position would be the word sabah, which is the word morning. To write the medial form of sad, draw the connecting segment to the starting point of the loop, the same point at which you started the initial position, then follow the same steps from before. The final sad is connected the same way as a medial sad and ends with a final tail the same shape as the tail of sin. Finally, we have the letter dad. This letter represents the emphatic counterpart or the emphatic form of the letter dal. To pronounce the dad, place the tongue in the same position you would use to pronounce the dal, but move it back a little bit so it gives a more resonating and a bit more emphatic sound. Remember that the dad is an emphatic consonant that deepens the quality of all surrounding vowels. Dad is also a connector and is written exactly like the sad, except that it takes 1 dot above. Next, we move on to the letter ta. This letter represents the emphatic counterpart of the letter ta and deepens the quality of surrounding vowels. Ta is a connector and is written in 2 separate shapes. Ta can be written the way I am writing it here, or you can begin with the loop, then place the straight line. I think this letter is particularly easy to learn because it is nearly the same in all forms. If you choose to write the loop first, the loop should be large, oblong, and fall along the line lengthwise, as you see. The final step in writing ta is the downstroke. After forming the loop, pick up your pen and draw this downstroke as you do the alif from the top down. Most people write the downstroke at or near the left end of the loop. To write a word beginning with ta, begin exactly as you did in the isolated phase and continue on into a smooth connecting segment without stopping. The medial form of ta is very similar to the initial form. Again, the final form appears very similar to the initial form and the medial form of ta. Make sure to draw the small tiny line extending on the line a little bit beyond the ta in its final phase. Finally, we have the letter dha. This letter represents the emphatic counterpart of dal. Because dha is an emphatic sound, it deepens the quality of surrounding vowels.